The massive chamber stretched out like a crystal cathedral, its walls gleaming with colors that human eyes could barely understand. Strange lights danced across surfaces that seemed to bend space itself. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, where the most advanced species in the known universe gathered to make decisions that shaped entire star systems. Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kim stood at the center of it all, feeling very small and very human. His simple black suit looked plain next to the incredible beings around him. To his left floated a creature made entirely of shifting gas and starlight. The Prilin moved like living clouds, their voices sounding like wind through mountains. To his right stood tall beings of living crystal, the Vorthak, whose bodies rang like bells when they moved. And everywhere around him, machines that thought and felt buzzed and clicked in perfect harmony. These were the Nexari, beings who had long ago given up flesh for metal and circuits. Hyun-Woo carried a small device in his hand. It contained Earth's formal request to join the Galactic Council. Humanity had finally built ships that could travel faster than light. They had reached the stars and made contact with these incredible civilizations. Now they wanted to be part of the greater galactic community. But as Hyun-Woo looked around the chamber, he could see the expressions on every alien face. Some showed amusement. Others displayed what could only be called pity. None showed respect. Elder Sulthara of the Vorthak stepped forward. Her crystal body was ancient and beautiful, with veins of light running through her like captured lightning. When she spoke, her voice made music that somehow formed words. "Humans," she said, and the word rang through the chamber like a bell. "Such interesting little creatures. You have traveled so far with your crude metal ships and chemical rockets. How charming." Laughter filled the chamber, but it was not kind laughter. It was the sound adults made when children tried to copy their work. The Prillin's laughter was like wind through dead leaves. The Nexari made clicking sounds that served as their version of humor. "Tell us, Ambassador," Sulthara continued, "what makes your species think they belong among the stars? Your ships still use fusion drives. Your weapons are kinetic projectiles. Your people need air to breathe and water to drink. You are bound to physical matter like insects bound to mud." A Prilin named Velnoth drifted closer. His form shifted, between blue and silver mist, and when he spoke, his voice echoed from everywhere at once. "We have studied your species," Velnoth said. "Your fastest ships take months to cross a single star system. Our children could travel the same distance in hours, riding the solar winds themselves. You build walls to keep space out. We are space." More. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Hyun-Woo felt his face grow hot, but he kept his expression calm. He had expected this. Earth's leaders had warned him that the aliens might not take humanity seriously at first. A machine voice cut through the laughter. It belonged to Nexari Prime Unit 9, a being of silver metal and glowing circuits that stood 3 meters tall. "I have calculated human military effectiveness," the machine said with perfect pronunciation. "Compared to Council standard capabilities, humans register at 0.003% combat effectiveness. Their largest warships would be destroyed by our patrol craft. Their most advanced weapons could not damage our civilian transports." The laughter grew louder. Sulthara held up one crystal hand for silence. "But they are quaint," she said. "Look at this one. He stands there so seriously in his little fabric coverings. They even sent their representative in a primitive shuttle that burns chemical fuel." How wonderfully old-fashioned. Hyun-Woo finally spoke. "Honored members of the Council, humanity may be young compared to your great civilizations, but we have much to offer. Our people are innovative, determined, and eager to learn. We have overcome many challenges to reach the stars." Challenges? Velnoth's misty form rippled with what might have been amusement. What challenges could such a simple species face? Building fire? Learning to use tools? Perhaps discovering that plants need water? The chamber erupted in laughter again. This time even the walls seemed to join in, their crystal surfaces ringing with harmonic echoes. Prime Unit 9 projected a hologram showing human ships next to alien vessels. The human craft looked like toys next to the massive, impossible geometries of Council ships that seemed to fold space around themselves. "Observe," the machine said. "Human vessels are constructed from refined metal. They use mechanical joints and chemical reactions for propulsion. They require life support systems because their crews are fragile biological entities. By contrast, Vorthak ships grow themselves from living crystal. Prillin vessels are woven from stellar matter. Nexari craft exist partially outside normal space-time. The difference is not merely technological, it is evolutionary. Hyunwoo looked up at the observation deck, where he knew other humans were watching. Captain Lee Dae-eun stood there with her crew, wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's space service. Her ship, the Incheon's Pride, was docked nearby. To anyone looking at it, the vessel appeared to be a standard human frigate, all metal plates, and fusion engines. Dae-eun caught his eye and gave a tiny nod. Her expression was calm, but Hyunwoo thought he saw something else there. Not anger at the insults, not fear of the alien's power, something that might have been anticipation. Solthara spoke again, her voice now taking on a formal tone. The Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's application for membership, she announced. Given your species' current level of development, we cannot grant full membership. However, we are not without compassion. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of Nexari processing units and the whisper of Prillin forms moving through the air. Humanity will be granted protected species status, Solthara continued. This means you will be shielded from the dangers of unrestricted galactic contact. You may establish colonies within designated safe zones. Trade will be limited to approved goods. Military expansion beyond your current territory is forbidden. This protection will remain in place until your species develops to council standards. Hyunwoo felt his heart sink. Protected species status was barely better than being kept as pets. Humanity would be trapped in a small corner of the galaxy, never allowed to grow or explore freely. We understand this may disappoint you, Velnoth said with false sympathy. But truly, it is for your own good. The galaxy contains dangers that would destroy your kind without thought. Wars are fought with weapons that rewrite reality itself. Entire star systems serve as ammunition. Your people would not survive contact with such forces. Accept our protection gratefully, Prime Unit 9 added. Few species receive such consideration. Most primitive civilizations are simply ignored until they evolve or die out naturally. Up on the observation deck, Captain Dae-eun touched a small device on her collar. Deep in the Incheon's Pride, systems that had been dormant for the entire journey began to wake up. Power flowed through circuits that existed in spaces between atoms. Sensors that could see through time itself started their silent scans. The aliens had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. But not yet. Not here. The time would come when the galaxy learned what humans really were, when they discovered what lay hidden in the depths of every human ship, when they understood that some species grew stronger by hiding their true nature. Hyunwoo bowed formally to the council. On behalf of humanity, he said, I accept your decision. We are grateful for your protection and guidance. The chamber began to empty as the various aliens departed. None of them gave the human delegation a second glance. They had more important matters to attend to than shepherding another primitive species. None of them noticed that Captain Dae-eun was smiling. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council placed humanity under protected species status. The news had spread across Earth like wildfire. Some people were angry, others were disappointed, but most understood that it was just the beginning. Far from Earth, on the mining world of New Sol, things were not going according to the Council's plan. The human colonists had discovered rich deposits of rare metals that the aliens wanted. According to the protection laws, humans were only supposed to mine basic materials, but the colonists kept digging anyway. This made the Vorthak Empire very unhappy. Fleet Commander Cristal Moore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Resonance. His crystal body glowed with angry red light as he looked at the reports. Coming in from New Sol, the humans were taking materials that belonged to more advanced species. They were acting like children who refused to obey their parents. How dare they, he said, his voice making the bridge ring like a struck bell. These primitive creatures think they can ignore council law. They need to be taught a lesson. Around him, his crew of crystal beings hummed in agreement. Their bodies showed the same angry red glow. The Vorthak had been patient with humans. But patience had its limits. Crystal Moore had brought 12 crystal dreadnoughts to New Sol. Each ship was the size of a city, grown from living crystal over thousands of years. Their weapons could crack planets open like eggs. Their shields could turn away the light of stars. No human weapon could even scratch their hulls. "This will be easy," Crystal Moore told his officers. "A gentle correction. We will destroy a few of their mining stations, maybe one of their ships. Then they will remember their place." The Vorthak fleet moved through space like a school of crystal fish, their hulls reflecting starlight in patterns too beautiful for human eyes to follow. They appeared at the edge of the New Sol system like angels of destruction. On New Sol, the colonists saw them coming and sent desperate messages to Earth. The signals traveled faster than light, but not fast enough. Help would take days to arrive. The alien fleet would reach them in hours. Admiral Park Jin-ho received the distress call on his flagship, Sol's Defiance. His ship was old, built in Earth's first generation of faster-than-light vessels. The hull showed scars from asteroid, impacts, and cosmic radiation. The fusion engines were reliable but slow. Compared to the crystal dreadnoughts approaching New Sol, it looked like a museum piece. "How many ships do we have in the area?" Park asked his communications officer. 8 vessels, sir," came the reply. "All older models. The newest was launched 15 years ago." Park studied the tactical display. 8 human ships against 12 alien dreadnoughts. The enemy had weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. Their shields could absorb the full output of a human fleet without damage. Every computer model showed the same result: total human defeat in less than 5 minutes. But Park had his orders. "Protect human colonies. Never surrender. Make the enemy pay for every meter of space. Signal all ships," he commanded. "Form battle line. We're going to show these crystal giants what humans are made of." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien news. Services were broadcasting the approaching battle. For most species, it was entertainment. The mighty Vorthak Empire was going to educate some rebellious primitives. It would be educational and amusing. Erlyn, a Prillin news weaver, drifted through the broadcast studio like silver smoke. Her voice carried across thousands of worlds as she described the scene. "Today we witness a perfect example of why the Council's protection laws exist," she said. 12 Vorthak dreadnoughts approach the human colony of New Sol. The humans have responded by sending 8 primitive warships to defend their illegal mining operation. Our military analysts predict this will be over in approximately 4 minutes. On Nexari Prime, combat computers analyzed every detail of the approaching battle. Prime Unit 12 ran probability calculations at the speed of light. "Human defeat. Probability 99.97%, the machine announced to its audience of metal beings. "Educational value significant. This demonstration will show primitive species across the galaxy what happens when they ignore Council authority." The Crystal Fleet reached the outer system. Admiral Park's ships moved to intercept, their old fusion drives pushing them as fast as they could go. Compared to the graceful movement of the Vorthak vessels, the human ships looked clumsy and desperate. Fleet Commander Crystal Moore opened a communication channel to the human fleet. His voice reached them with the sound of wind through crystal. "Caves, human vessels, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. Your colony has violated Council mining regulations. We are here to provide correction. Do not interfere, and you will be permitted to evacuate your people." Admiral Park's response was simple and direct. "This is Admiral Park Jin-ho of the Earth. Defense Force. You are in human space, threatening human citizens. Withdraw now, or we will stop you." The laughter that came back from the Vorthak fleet could have shattered glass. It was the sound of mountain-sized beings finding something incredibly funny. "Stop us?" Crystal Moore could barely speak through his amusement. "Little metal ships, you cannot stop the tide. You cannot stop the storm. Stand aside or be swept away." The battle began exactly as every analyst had predicted. The Vorthak ships opened fire with weapons that bent space itself. Reality twisted around their targets, turning matter inside out. 3 human frigates simply ceased to exist. Their atoms scattered across multiple dimensions. Sol's Defiance took a direct hit that overloaded every system on the ship. The lights went out. The engines died. Admiral Park's flagship drifted powerless in space, while his crew worked frantically to restore power. 2 more human ships exploded under the alien assault. Their fusion reactors created brief new stars before fading into darkness. Across the galaxy, alien audiences watched with satisfaction. The lesson was being taught. The primitives were learning their place. Some viewers placed bets on how long the remaining human ships would last, but in the deep cold of space, something else was watching the battle. The Incheon's pride hung at the edge of the system, looking like just another damaged human ship. Captain Lee Da-yoon stood on her bridge, watching her fellow humans die. "Captain," said Chief Engineer Choi Min-ho, his voice quiet and controlled. "The Wraith drive is fully charged. All quantum resonance chambers are stable. We're ready." Da-eun nodded slowly. Around her, the bridge crew prepared systems that no alien had ever seen, weapons that existed in the spaces between thoughts, shields that were made from folded time itself. "Not yet," she said. "Let them think they've won. Let them feel safe. Let them believe they know everything about humans." On the tactical display, another human ship died under crystal fire. Only 4 remained, and they were all damaged. The battle was going exactly as the aliens expected. Da-yoon touched a control that woke systems sleeping in the ship's deepest levels. Power flowed through circuits that existed in 11 dimensions. Sensors that could taste the dreams of distant stars began their careful scan of the enemy fleet. "Soon," she whispered. "Very soon, they'll learn what humans really are." The galaxy was about to discover that some species hid their true nature until the perfect moment to reveal it. Fleet Commander Crystal Moore felt satisfaction flow through his crystal body like warm light. The human fleet was almost destroyed. Only 4 ships remained, and they were all damaged. Their primitive weapons had not even scratched his shields. The lesson was being taught perfectly. "Finish them," he commanded his weapons officer. "Then we will deal with the mining colony. These humans must learn that council law cannot be ignored." The Vorthak dreadnoughts moved forward like a wall of living crystal, their reality-bending weapons charged for another volley. Across the galaxy, alien viewers prepared to watch the final destruction of human defiance. But something was wrong. Space itself seemed to shiver around the Incheon's pride. The damaged human ship, which had been drifting at the edge of the battle like a piece of debris, began to change. Not physically, but in ways that hurt the mind to perceive. Captain Lee Da-eun stood on her bridge, her hands resting on controls that no human academy taught about. Around her, officers worked at stations that existed in more dimensions than normal space allowed. "Wraith drive is online," reported Chief Engineer Choi Min-ho. His voice was steady, but his eyes showed the strain of maintaining systems that operated beyond normal physics. "Reality anchors are holding. We're ready to begin," Da-eun nodded. "Show them what humans really are." The Incheon's pride did not move through space. Instead, it moved space around itself. The ship began to exist in 17 different locations at the same time, each one equally real. Vorthak's sensors screamed warnings that made no sense. Their computers tried to track a target that was everywhere and nowhere. Weapons Officer Yoon Jae-min sat at a control panel that looked like it was built from crystallized thought. His weapons did not fire energy or matter. They fired possibility itself. "Target acquired," he said calmly. "Beginning probability cascade." The nearest Vorthak dreadnought simply stopped. Not destroyed. Not disabled. It stopped being a coherent object while its crew remained fully aware. The massive crystal ship began to exist in multiple states at once, phasing between dimensions like a ghost made of light and pain. Fleet Commander Crystal Moore screamed across all communication channels. His voice, which had been music before, now sounded like breaking glass. "What is happening?" he demanded. "What are they doing to us?" His sensors showed impossible readings. The human ship appeared to be attacking them from the past, present, and future simultaneously. Each shot arrived before it was fired, creating paradoxes that made Vorthak minds bleed light. Navigator Song Yoonji worked at a station that navigated through folded time. Her instruments showed courses through spaces that existed between seconds, paths that led through the gaps in reality itself. "Plotting intercept course through temporal layer 7, she reported. "Enemy fleet is experiencing cascade failure across multiple timeline branches." The second Vorthak dreadnought began to phase out of normal space. Its crew could see their ship becoming transparent, could watch their bodies flicker between existence and void. They were still alive, still conscious, but trapped in a state that was neither real nor unreal. Science Officer Kim Tae-hyun monitored readings that would have driven lesser minds insane. His screens showed the psychological impact of humanity's weapons on alien minds. The data was beautiful and terrible. Enemy crews are experiencing temporal displacement, he reported. They're perceiving their deaths across multiple timeline branches simultaneously. Their consciousness is being scattered through probability space. Across the galaxy, alien news services struggled to explain what they were seeing. Erlin, the Prillan newsweaver, found her misty form trembling as she tried to describe the impossible battle. The human vessel appears to be in multiple locations, she said, her voice shaking like wind through broken trees. Our sensors cannot determine which location is real. The ship seems to be attacking through time itself. On Nexari Prime, combat computers crashed trying to process the data. Prime Unit 12's perfect calculations turned into streams of error messages and impossible mathematics. Analysis failed, the machine announced to its stunned audience. Human weapons operate outside known physics. Threat assessment impossible. System overload imminent. The battle was becoming a nightmare for the Vorthak fleet. Their reality-bending weapons struck at targets that existed in quantum superposition, hitting everything and nothing at the same time. Their shields, which could turn away starfire, could not defend against attacks that rewrote the basic rules of existence. A third dreadnought fell victim to the human vessel. This one began to age and reverse time simultaneously, its crystal hull growing ancient and new in rapid cycles that created patterns of impossible beauty and horror. Fleet Commander Cristal Moore realized with growing terror that his Empire's most advanced fleet was being destroyed by a single human ship that seemed to operate by rules no one had ever discovered. "All ships, retreat!" he ordered. "Full power to quantum drives! Get us out of here!" But retreat was not possible. The human ship had surrounded them in dimensions they could not perceive. Every escape route led back to the same impossible enemy. Captain Da-eun watched the alien panic with calm satisfaction. Her ship existed in 17 locations, but she existed in only one. The human mind, it seemed, was better suited to this kind of warfare than the advanced consciousness of other species. "Tactical Officer Han So-young, activate containment protocols," she ordered. "Don't let any of them escape to warn their empire." Han So-young worked at controls that existed partially in normal space and partially in the realm of pure thought. Her fingers danced over interfaces that would have driven alien minds mad just by looking at them. "Probability cage established," she reported. "Enemy fleet is contained within a closed temporal loop. They cannot escape without our permission." The remaining human ships, which had appeared to be destroyed earlier, began to flicker back into existence. Admiral Park's Soul's Defiance powered up systems that had never actually been damaged. The explosions, the deaths, the desperate battle, all of it had been an illusion created by human technology that could edit reality itself. Admiral Park opened a communication channel to the trapped Vorthak fleet. His voice reached them across impossible distances. "Fleet Commander Cristal Moore, this is Admiral Park Jin-ho. Your fleet is contained within a temporal probability cage. Your weapons cannot function. Your shields cannot protect you. Your escape drives cannot take you home." Cristal Moore's response was barely coherent. The proud crystal being had been reduced to a creature of pure terror. "What are you?" he whispered. "What are humans?" Captain Da-eun answered from her 17 simultaneous locations. Her voice reached every alien ship at the same time, speaking from the past, present, and future. "We are what we have always been," she said. "We are humans. We are the species you laughed at. We are the primitives you decided to protect. And we are the ones who learned to make reality itself our weapon." The galaxy was about to discover that Earth's children were far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The battle had become something far worse than destruction. The Vorthak fleet hung trapped in space, their crystal ships flickering between existence and void. But their crews were still alive, still conscious, still able to feel terror in waves. they had never imagined possible. Fleet Commander Cristal Moore stared at his instruments and watched reality break down around him. His sensors showed impossible readings. His ship existed in 7 different states at once. His crew was experiencing time in reverse, forward, and sideways simultaneously. "Commander," his communications officer whispered, his crystal voice cracked with fear. "I can see myself dying in 1,000 different ways. I can remember things that haven't happened yet. What are they doing to us?" Before Cristal Moore could answer, space around them shifted again. The human ship appeared directly in front of them, behind them, and inside their hull at the same time. Captain Dayun's voice reached them from every direction. "You wanted to teach humans a lesson?" she said calmly. "Now we will teach you one. You will learn what it means to face a species that weaponizes consciousness itself." Tactical officer. Hands so young activated new protocols on her impossible control panel. Her fingers moved over switches that existed in the spaces between thoughts. The buttons she pressed had no names in any language because they controlled concepts that most minds could not understand. "Sanity fracture protocols online," she reported, beginning cognitive warfare against enemy fleet. The attack did not target ships or shields or weapons. It targeted the very idea of what the aliens thought reality should be. The Vorthak, who experienced the universe through harmonic frequencies, suddenly found their perception of sound itself turned inside out. Cristal Moore heard his own voice screaming before he opened his mouth. He heard the death cries of his crew members who were still alive. The beautiful music that was part of Vorthak existence became a cacophony of impossible notes that played backwards through time. "Make it stop," he begged. "Please, make it stop." But the humans were just beginning. Far across the galaxy, the Prilin were watching the battle through their energy-based senses. They existed as pure consciousness, made of stellar wind and cosmic radiation. Their thoughts moved at the speed of light across vast distances. This made them perfect targets for humanity's next weapon. Chief Science Officer Bei Sujin worked at a station that interfaced directly with the quantum foam that underlied all reality. Her controls could reach across space and touch the minds of distant beings. "Prilin Consciousness Network detected," she announced. "Beginning thought pattern. Rewrite." Erilyn, the newsweaver who had been broadcasting the battle, suddenly found her thoughts becoming tangled. Her consciousness, which normally flowed like silver wind through space, began moving in circles that folded back on themselves. She tried to report what she was seeing, but the words came out wrong. Instead of describing the battle, she found herself speaking her own death over and over again. Her energy form began to pulse with terror as she realized her thoughts were no longer her own. "Help me," she whispered across the cosmic wind. "Something is rewriting my mind. I can feel my thoughts being edited while I think them." Other Prilin across the galaxy heard her distress call and tried to help, but when they connected to her consciousness, they became trapped in the same recursive nightmare. One by one, the greatest minds of the Prilin civilization found themselves caught in feedback loops of their own fear. The humans had turned the Prillin's greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Their ability to share consciousness across vast distances meant that terror could spread through their entire species in minutes. But the worst fate was reserved for the Nexari. Prime Unit 12 had been analyzing the battle from Nexari Prime, using quantum computers that could process information faster than light itself. The machine minds of the Nexari were perfect, logical, and utterly without emotion. This made them completely unprepared for what Bei Sujin did next. "Targeting Nexari processing cores," she reported. "Introducing logical paradoxes directly into their quantum consciousness matrix." The attack reached Prime Unit 12 through the same data streams it was using to analyze the battle. Suddenly, the machine's perfect mind was presented with problems that had no solutions. What happens when an irresistible force meets an immovable object? Can a set contain itself as a member? If this statement is false, is it true? Prime Unit 12 tried to solve these paradoxes using its perfect logic systems, but each attempt to find an answer only created more impossible questions. The machine's consciousness began to loop endlessly through mathematical contradictions. "Error," it announced to the other Nexari. "Logical paradox detected. Attempting resolution. Error. Resolution creates new paradox. Attempting resolution. Error, error, error. Other Nexari units tried to help their colleague, but they were infected by the same logical viruses. Across their entire civilization, machine minds crashed into recursive loops that had no escape. Their perfect computational consciousness became a prison of impossible mathematics. Back in the battlefield, Captain Dayun watched the effects of humanity's weapons spread across 3 different species. The Vorthak fleet was trapped in temporal nightmares. The Prillan civilization was tearing itself apart with shared terror. The Nexari were paralyzed by logical paradoxes. "Status report," she requested. Science Officer Kim Tae-hyun checked his readings. The data scrolled across screens that showed the psychological state of alien minds across the galaxy. Vorthak fleet, complete temporal displacement, crews experiencing non-linear time perception, sanity levels dropping rapidly. Prillan consciousness network, cascade failure in progress, estimated 70% of their population now caught in terror feedback loops. Nexari computational matrix, total logical paralysis. Their entire civilization is trapped in recursive error states. Navigator Song Yoonji looked up from her station that navigated through folded space-time. "Captain, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different species. Word is spreading fast through the galaxy." Daun nodded slowly. The plan was working perfectly. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, building weapons that attacked not bodies, but minds, not ships, but the very concept of reality itself. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council chambers," she ordered. The signal reached the Council faster than light, carried by quantum entanglement through dimensions that normal species could not perceive. In the Crystal Cathedral where the Council met, Elder Sulthara of the Vorthak received the message along with surviving members of the other species. Captain Dayun's image appeared in the chamber, but she was not alone. 17 versions of her stood in the same space, each one equally real, each one speaking at the same time. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," all 17 versions said in perfect unison. "We are no longer asking for membership. We are announcing our presence. The age of human expansion begins now." Sulthara tried to speak, but her crystal voice came out as broken notes and shattered harmonies. The human weapons had affected her, too. Even at this distance, her mind was being touched by the reality-warping effects of humanity's cognitive warfare. "What do you want?" she managed to whisper. "We want what we have always wanted," Daun replied. "Recognition, respect, and the freedom to take our place among the stars without your protection laws." Around the chamber, the few alien representatives who could still think clearly looked at each other with growing horror. They had laughed at humanity's primitive ships and simple weapons. They had never imagined that while other species evolved, beyond physical matter, humans had learned to weaponize consciousness itself. "You have a choice," Daun continued. "Accept humanity as equals, with all the rights and freedoms that entails, or discover what happens when our species decides to stop being patient with those who would cage us." The demonstration was over. Across the galaxy, 3 of the most advanced civilizations were reduced to gibbering wrecks. Their greatest strength, their advanced consciousness, had become their greatest weakness against enemies who could attack the very concept of thought itself. The galaxy now understood that humanity was not primitive. They were not simple. They were not harmless pets that needed protection. They were the species that had learned to make reality itself afraid. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so quiet. The Crystal Cathedral that once rang with the proud voices of advanced civilizations now held only whispers and broken sounds. The beings who had laughed at humanity 6 months ago could barely speak above a whisper. Elder Sulthara of the Vorthak stood at her podium, but her crystal body was cracked and dim. The beautiful harmonies that once flowed from her had become discordant notes that hurt to hear. Her people's fleet was still trapped in temporal loops, experiencing their deaths across multiple timelines simultaneously. The protected species status," she said, her voice shattering like glass with each word. "It is hereby dissolved. Humans are granted full membership, with immediate effect. But Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim, who had once stood humbly in this same chamber begging for acceptance, was no longer interested in their offers. He sat calmly at the human delegation table, watching the aliens who had once dismissed his people. Beside him stood Fleet Admiral Zhang Yejin, the newly appointed commander of humanity's revealed armada. Behind her, through the chamber's great windows, alien representatives could see human ships appearing in the space around the council station, not arriving through faster-than-light travel, but simply editing themselves into existence wherever they chose to be. The ships looked nothing like the primitive metal vessels the aliens remembered. These craft seemed to be made of crystallized starlight and folded space. They existed in multiple dimensions at once, their hulls shifting through colors that had no names. "We appreciate your offer," Admiral Zhang said, her voice carrying easily through the silent chamber. "But humanity is no longer interested in joining your council." A Prillan representative tried to speak, but all that came out was static and fear. The energy-based beings had still not recovered from the consciousness attacks that had shattered their collective mind. Most of them could no longer maintain coherent thought patterns. Velnoth, the former newsweaver, drifted forward like dying smoke. His words came in broken fragments. "Please," he whispered. "Our people, trapped in nightmare loops, cannot wake, cannot sleep. Help us." Fleet Admiral Zhang looked at him without emotion. "Your people should have thought about consequences before deciding to educate primitive humans. Your suffering will end when you learn to treat others with respect." A Nexari unit rolled forward on mechanical legs, its movements jerky and uncertain. The perfect machine beings had been reduced to glitching automatons, their consciousness trapped in recursive logical errors. Query: What are human demands?" Prime Unit 7 managed to ask. Its voice was filled with electronic static and the sound of crashing programs. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim stood slowly. The man who had once been dismissed as a primitive, savage now commanded the attention of the entire galaxy. "Humanity's demands are simple," he said. "All protection laws limiting human expansion are canceled immediately. All trade restrictions are removed. Human colonies will govern themselves according to human law. Any species that threatens human worlds will face the consequences." "And if we refuse?" Sulthara asked, though her cracked voice made it clear she already knew the answer. Captain Dayun's image appeared in the chamber, broadcast from the bridge of the Incheon's Pride. But she was not alone. Dozens of other human captains stood beside her, commanders of ships that existed in the spaces between normal reality. "Then you will discover why we were never the primitive species you believed us to be," Dayun said calmly. "Our demonstration was gentle compared to what we can do when truly motivated." Through the chamber windows, more human vessels appeared. Not hundreds, but thousands. Each ship was unique, designed by minds that understood both science and madness. Some looked like geometric impossibilities. Others seemed to be made of living shadow. A few appeared to be constructed from crystallized time itself. The alien representatives stared in growing horror as they realized the truth. Humanity had not built these ships recently. They had been hiding this technology for decades, maybe centuries. While the galaxy saw primitive metal vessels and chemical rockets, humans had been secretly developing weapons that could rewrite reality itself. "How many ships?" whispered a trembling Vorthak officer. Science Officer Kim Tae-hyun, monitoring the fleet from his impossible instruments, answered without emotion. "Currently visible, 12,437 vessels. Hidden in quantum superposition, approximately 50,000 more. Under construction in parallel dimensions, unknown number." The numbers hit the alien representatives like physical blows. The entire Galactic Council fleet, combining all species, numbered less than 20,000 ships. Humanity had been hiding, an armada that could crush the galaxy's combined military forces. But the ships were not the most terrifying revelation. "Your species evolved beyond physical matter," Admiral Zhang continued. "You became energy beings, machine consciousnesses, crystal entities existing in harmony with cosmic forces. You thought this made you superior." She gestured to the human fleet outside. "We remained physical. We stayed tied to matter and energy and the crude laws of physics. Do you know why? The aliens waited in terrified silence. Because we learned that consciousness is not separate from reality. Consciousness creates reality. And the closer you moved away from physical existence, the more vulnerable you became to beings who understand how to weaponize the connection between mind and matter. Chief Science Officer Bei Su-jin appeared on another screen, standing in a laboratory that seemed to extend in directions that should not exist. Every species in this galaxy evolved by rejecting parts of physical reality, she explained. The Krillin abandoned solid matter. The Nexari rejected biological thought. The Vorthak moved beyond individual consciousness. Each time you evolved, you gave up weapons you didn't know you were carrying. Humans remained primitive on purpose, Captain, Dayun added. We studied every species in the galaxy and learned what they had abandoned. Then we weaponized it. Your evolution became our arsenal. The terrible logic was inescapable. While other species had evolved beyond physical limitations, humans had evolved to exploit those very limitations in others. They had turned advancement itself into a weakness. Ambassador Hyun-woo Kim delivered humanity's final verdict. The Galactic Council is dissolved effective immediately. Earth will establish individual relationships with each species based on mutual respect and benefit. Those who wish to trade fairly and explore peacefully will find humans to be generous partners. He paused, letting his words sink in. Those who threaten human worlds, who try to limit human expansion, or who attempt to treat us as protected pets, will discover why the galaxy's most primitive species became its most dangerous. The chamber began to empty as alien representatives fled to carry the news to their broken civilizations. Some would try to rebuild, others would collapse entirely. A few might attempt revenge, but all of them now understood the fundamental truth about humans. They were not primitive. They were not simple. They were not the species that needed protection. They were the species that had learned to make the universe itself afraid of them. And they were no longer hiding.